So this is work that I did at Berkeley with Floraine and Gautham from Adobe Research and my advisor, Maneesh, who is now at Stanford. So in the past few years at UIST, I presented work about producing audio stories, proposing new interfaces and algorithms, producing new interfaces and algorithms to help producers edit speech and music to make these high-quality stories. But what about actually recording speech in the first place? So that's the focus in our project this year. So first, I'm going to start off by playing you a clip of some good narration. So notice here how the speakers emphasize the words and varies his voice to keep the audience engaged.
Airport screeners from the TSA are supposed to keep the flying public safe. But a government watchdog has been testing screeners around the country on how well they're doing that, and the results are alarming.
But that's an example from a professional radio talent. So what about novices? They're not going to emphasize many words, they're going to rush, they're going to mumble. It might sound something like this.
The idea behind Blue Laws was to make certain activities illegal on Sundays.
In our work, we built a tool that helps novices sound more like this.
The idea behind Blue Laws was to make certain activities illegal on Sundays.
So what makes a narration great in the first place? I sort of hinted at some of these things. So we studied this, reading books, blog posts, and listening to plenty of voiceover actors. We found that really these professional voiceover actors fine-tuned 4 main vocal attributes, which are emphasis, flow, variety, and diction. Emphasis means hitting words or modifying how you say certain words to make them stand out. This is done to capture the attention and to modify meaning. For example, in this sentence, the word you emphasize in this sentence, you can pick any word and it changes the meaning of the sentence completely. So compare, I never said she stole my money, to I never said she stole my money. And to add emphasis to a word, you manipulate its pitch mainly, but also its volume and tempo. Good flow means not rushing through speech and not crawling. And also making sure not to have awkward pauses in your speech. And this is important to keep your speech understandable. And to improve flow in a narration, you need to make sure you're not talking too fast or too slow, and again, that you don't have these awkward pauses. Variety means that a narrator should mix it up. This is to keep it interesting for listeners. So instead of talking like a robot like this, you should add variety by increasing your pitch variance and tempo variance. Finally, a narration has good diction when the speaker is enunciating, and this again is critical for speech legibility. So look at my mouth for a second. When I mumble, my mouth doesn't really move that much. But when I'm enunciating and moving my mouth a lot more, it's a lot easier to understand what I'm saying. So our goal in this work was to build a system that helps novice voiceover actors create better narrations. And our key idea was to automatically provide feedback to users as they're recording. Real voiceover actors have professional training and voice coaches, and we wanted to give that kind of an experience to a novice. And we built a system called Narration Coach to do this. In this system, we build on ideas in active capture from Chang and Davis and Kurihara. And we also make use of a number of speech processing algorithms that I'll reference along the way. People recording narrations will often focus on their script line by line. So we designed our system around this idea to organize recordings and give feedback at the line level. So the user will import their script and record part of it, and our system will then align the recordings to the lines in the script and provide text and audio feedback on the vocal attributes. The user can use this feedback to re-record and improve his narration to create a better final voiceover. So we start with a script as input, but first we need to figure out which words should be emphasized. So here the user can select words that he wants to emphasize, say, choose a few important words in the sentences and underline them to say, when I record this, I think I should emphasize these words. But in some cases, the user might not know what words he wants to emphasize, so he can click on this Annotate line button for an automatic suggestion. So he selects a line, clicks on that button, and a few of the words are underlined by our system. So voiceover actors suggest to emphasize important words like action verbs, adjectives, and proper nouns, and also to emphasize words at the start and end of sentences. So to provide the automatic suggestion that I just mentioned, Narration Coach follows a flow based on these guidelines. So tags part of speech of each word, and if any of the words are action verbs, adjectives, or proper nouns, it suggests to emphasize them. Otherwise, if they're at the beginning or the end of sentences and they are content words, it also suggests to emphasize those words. So the user has annotated their script. They know the words they want to emphasize. So next up, the user will actually record part of his script. So he can start recording from anywhere in the script. He doesn't have to do it from the beginning. And he also doesn't have to read the lines exactly as they're written. He can go off script, improvise a little bit, change the wording, and so on.
When you leave the house, do you ever turn on some music to keep your cat company? What kind of music do you choose? Maybe Tom Jones crooning What's New Pussycat.
Then Narration Coach takes this recording and aligns it to the script. So it'll show the lines that turn blue are the lines that the user has already recorded. So to do this alignment, the system first performs automatic speech recognition on the speech. Because what we might say might not match exactly with the script, Narration Coach then executes a global text alignment algorithm to determine where those lines actually show up in the original script. Finally, it performs word and phoneme level alignment, so our system knows where each word and phoneme starts and ends. And this part of the alignment is key for providing the feedback in our tool. So once the user has recorded some lines, he can click on a line to see what we're calling the take inspector for that line. And the take inspector shows feedback for each line. We show feedback for the 4 high-level attributes that I mentioned earlier, the first and probably most important of which is emphasis. So for example, take this sentence. I wanted to emphasize these 3 words, leave, music, and company, and here's my recording.
When you leave the house, do you ever turn on some music to keep your cat company?
I only really emphasized music very well there. So we show which words the speaker did emphasize correctly in green, and words that they wanted to emphasize but failed to emphasize in red. We also provide emphasis resynthesis for feedback, which allows the narrator to hear what the sentence might sound like had he emphasized the words that he missed. So for example, take this original recording.
What kind do you choose?
We can then emphasize the word kind.
What kind do you choose?
So to detect emphasis, we first apply an algorithm from AutoBee, which is a tool to predict prosodic annotation. This gives us predicted pitch accents from the line. For example, in this short phrase here,
audio stories, explainer videos, and commercials.
AutoBee would tell us that these words have pitch accents. But this isn't quite enough because sometimes adjacent words both have pitch accents, like explainer and videos here. But we only really hear the bigger one, the one that seems more emphasized. So we apply a second pass of comparing the pitch contour to make sure that each word has a greater pitch peak than its neighbors. So here we would mark explainer as emphasized, but not videos. To add emphasis to speech, Narration Coach adjusts the pitch, volume, and duration contours of words using Pasola, and we adjust the contours to match characteristic emphases from our studies. So in this example, I can play it again. We adjust the contours of the word kind. From this,
what kind do you choose?
To this.
What kind do you choose?
So next, flow feedback shows whether the speaker was too fast or too slow, and also marks awkward pauses in the speech. So take this sentence.
When you leave the house, do you ever turn on some music to keep your cat company?
So it had pretty good speed, but there was that awkward pause between on and some. So we also provide flow resynthesis feedback, which slows down or speeds up the recording as necessary, and it also strips out these awkward pauses. So, for example, it could take this sentence, this original recording.
Cats don't want to hear humans singing about them.
And resynthesize it.
Cats don't want to hear humans singing about them.
Narration Coach computes speed at the line level by using a phoneme speech model to estimate how much faster or slower than normal the speaker is talking, and then reports that back to the user. And our liner already finds pauses in the speech, so in order to mark awkward pauses, we find long pauses that do not occur after punctuation. So in general, these are bad places to pause. And to remove the pauses, we splice the audio to skip those segments. Next, we provide variety feedback as text feedback on a course scale. So in this particular recording,
maybe Tom Jones crooning "What's New, Pussycat?"
has pretty bad pitch variety, so Narration Coach shows that the speaker is being monotone. Narration Coach also reports tempo variety at the script level. And these are based on the standard deviation of pitch and words per minute. Finally, we provide diction feedback to tell the speaker if they're mumbling. This doesn't use any audio processing. Instead, we video record the user as they're speaking and run Sergey's face tracker. And we look at the standard deviation of mouth movements when they're recording. Small variance in these movements, like on the left side here, likely corresponds with mumbled speech, while having larger variance in mouth movements generally corresponds to less mumbled enunciation. In addition to feedback, the take inspector shows the user every version of a given script line that they've recorded. So from there, he can listen to all of these different versions, which might have, as you see here, they'll have different wordings, and he can listen to them, look at their feedback, pick the one that is best for his final narration. So we built this tool to help novice voiceover actors create better narrations. So naturally, we had some novice voiceover actors try it out. We had 5 users create versions of narrations using Adobe Audition, which is a traditional audio editing software tool, and also Narration Coach. They first recorded a script using Audition, and they were given as much time as they needed to record and re-record lines to perfect their recording. And we then gave them a tutorial on Narration Coach and its features and let them create a recording of the same script, again, using this tool. And like in the first part of the task, they had as much time as they needed. So here are some excerpts from their recordings. First, you'll hear some lines from their final audition recording, and then you'll hear some lines from their final Narration Coach recording. So first, audition.
Back in colonial America, blue meant indecent. Lawmakers established rigid controls over morals and conduct.
And narration.
Back in colonial America, blue meant indecent. Lawmakers established rigid controls over morals and conduct.
The rationale behind the law is that if a vote cannot be proved, it cannot be purchased. The rationale behind the law is that if a vote cannot be proved, it cannot be purchased.
But malaria's compartment doesn't photosynthesize light to make the sugars. Instead, it manufactures building blocks for the parasite cell.
But malaria's compartment doesn't photosynthesize light to make sugars. Instead, it manufactures building blocks for the parasite cell.
So all 5 of the users preferred their Narration Coach recording over their audition recording. And we also asked crowd listeners on Mechanical Turk which narration they thought was higher quality. And they statistically agreed that the Narration Coach recording was higher quality. Overall, the users liked the features of Narration Coach. One feature that seemed to be less useful was the emphasis resyntheses, mostly because it often didn't sound believable, which made it hard to use as feedback. So in order to make the feedback more useful, we would need to incorporate a better speech manipulation algorithm. So you might be thinking, wouldn't it be more magical to automatically improve people's narrations? In some ways, yes, but if we did that, the user wouldn't actually get any better at recording speech. Additionally, some users might not like their own voice, so there's this interesting philosophical question of if you can somehow manipulate someone's voice so it no longer sounds like them, but still gives them agency in the recording process. So just to wrap up, I want to give a special thank you to my collaborators at Berkeley and Adobe Research, those on this paper, and also Will Lee, who I worked with on a few projects. This is the last project of my PhD, and my collaborators have been exceptionally supportive. And I want to especially mention Floraine, who passed away in August, She was a great role model as I was starting my PhD in my lab at Berkeley, and she's been just an inspiring collaborator and friend over the last 4 years. Thanks.
Hello, Krzysztof Gajos, Harvard. Is this just a recording support tool or is it a teaching tool? In other words, if you later on ask people to record a voiceover without the support of the coach, would they still have the skills to record a good?
So you're saying afterwards?
Yeah.
So we didn't study that. That's a very, very good idea. So I hesitate to hypothesize about how well it actually did at teaching these people how to do things. But I mean, you could definitely see this as some sort of training. I mean, they're getting direct feedback on the things they're doing. But yeah, I don't want to make bold claims there.
Dong from Cornell. Fascinating idea, well implemented, I think. I think auto collection will be really useful. Then which element of the speech correction will be easier to correct and harder?
Well, I think the things that are easy are less useful. You know, the things that are easy are change the speed of someone's speech, you know, change volume. But it's really the subtleties of how do you make it really sound like they emphasize these words, or maybe their tone of voice was wrong throughout the recording and they need to be more excited or less excited, or, you know, more serious, or there are all these attributes too that we didn't really cover at all here of even just making recordings that are made at different times and different settings all sound complete together. So yeah, it's generally the easy things are less useful.
Thanks.